Okay, let's get into audience questions for the week. First question, one that came up indirectly a lot of times throughout stories we talked about this week. Is there anything at this point that would convince Trumpists that Donald Trump actually lost? We are more than 6 months out. There's a so-called election audit happening in Arizona. They're looking for bamboo fibers as evidence that the ballots were dumped from China. It's crazy what's going on. So the question is a different one now, 6 months out, than it was 6 months ago. 6 months ago, we could have accurately said, after these various efforts failed to demonstrate that there was fraud, as Donald Trump says, some of these Trumpists will become convinced, they will accept that Donald Trump really did lose. And some did. The percentage of Republicans that believe Trump won has declined over the last couple of months, but it's still really, really high. And at this point, I don't believe there is anything that would convince these Trumpists that Donald Trump really just lost. It wasn't stolen. It wasn't an illegitimate win by Joe Biden or whatever the case. He just lost. And there's two things that are going on. Number one, at this point, we think of the holy grail of the mea culpa, which would be Trump coming to them and saying, "Sirs, I lost. That's it." Even if he were to do that, they still wouldn't believe it. They would do what's called the special pleading. They would say, well, Trump says he lost now, but because he's been forced to say it. The deep state or Joe Biden threatened him with house arrest, or they got to him. And it's not even, we can't even believe Donald Trump when he says this at this point in time. That's one possibility. Now, if you believe Trump to be the epitome of the alpha male, the idea that he would be successfully blackmailed by someone as weak as they see Joe Biden being, that also doesn't make sense. But remember, none of this makes sense. So I think even if Trump said, "I was wrong, I lost," those who still believe Trump actually won would just say, clearly somebody forced Trump to do that. Number two, we don't really even need to theorize or speculate, because for a year, Trump said the virus isn't serious and we're winning and it's like the flu and we don't need to worry about anything. And it developed this huge anti-vaccine sentiment on the right. And then Trump was secretly vaccinated in January at the White House, didn't tell anybody until he was asked about it months later, and said, yeah, people should get it. And Republicans are still the most anti-COVID vaccine group out there. It was too late after feeding them the misinformation for months and months, really over a year, about the virus. By the time Trump simply said, yeah, I got the vaccine and people should get it, it was too late to even convince them. So once an idea has spread virally in the minds of these Trumpists, even Trump himself can't change their minds. That's how powerful these viral memes of disinformation have become. Now, last thing. Earlier in the week, I talked about anecdotal thinking. Many of these Trumpists believe Biden didn't really win, he's not legitimate, and these types of things, because of the things that Donald Trump said for so long. But there are other Trumpists who aren't able to get beyond anecdotal thinking. And what I mean by that is, even though we can go and say, okay, Trump got lots of votes, but so did Joe Biden, and it was just record turnout, and we understand why, it makes sense, pandemic, and one of the biggest adjudications of a White House presidential term in who knows how long. Makes sense there would be a lot of votes. For a lot of these people, it's just anecdotal thinking. Like, I live in wherever, Mississippi. Everybody I know voted for Trump. I don't know anybody who voted for Joe Biden. Now, maybe you do, but they're scared to mention it because you're nuts and they worry how you would react. But I don't know. The people around me in my deeply conservative enclave all voted for Trump. And I went to a Trump rally and it was filled with Trump people. And I watched Fox News and they went to a diner and everybody at the diner seemed to like Trump. My anecdotal thinking is informing and superseding my views, superseding the empirical broad strokes views of polling and the fact that you don't hear from most people on Twitter. No one place is going to tell you sort of what the sentiment is of a country with 331 million people. So that's another piece of it. And then there's people who are just every combination of the above, or bad faith actors, or just suffering from a cognitive issue. So no, sadly, at this point in time, if you still believe that Donald Trump actually won, I don't believe there's anything left that could convince you other than just time. Over time, maybe some of these people will be able to re-examine their beliefs about the 2020 election with some distance and objectivity. But beyond that, I don't have high hopes that we're going to convince these people, nor do I think that we should be employing a retail strategy of arguing with individuals to try to do it. I think the way to win elections is let's get turnout up, let's prevent voter suppression rather than arguing with individual Trumpists.